This is The Guardian.
Hello and welcome to The Guardian Football Weekly. The all-new likeable PSG get a vital goal in injury time to give them a healthy lead over Aston Villa. Nuno Mendes dropped the shoulder and took the whole Villa team with him and put it into the back of the net. Earlier, Axel Disasi had been turned inside out by Kvaratskhelia, and before that, Désiré Doué hit one so well, Emi Martínez didn't even move. Feels a long time ago that Morgan Rogers put Unai Emery's men ahead. In Barcelona, Raphinha and co destroy Borussia Dortmund. Is it time to take them seriously, klaxon? We'll look ahead to the Europa League last chance saloon for Manchester United and Spurs, and also the race for 5th place weekend in the Premier League, including Archie's Fulham minute. There's ticket sales at the Club World Cup, the retirement of Darren Cann, your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hi, Max.
Philippe Auclair, bonjour, ça va?
Ça va très bien, Max. Je t'en remercie.
Oui. And Archie Rhind-Tutt, hello.
Guten Tag.
Okay, then let's begin at the Parc des Princes. PSG 3, Aston Villa 1. Should we start then, Philippe, with those Declan Rice free kicks? No, I'm kidding. We'll do that in a bit, okay? We can start with the PSG goals we saw yesterday. I mean, they were all brilliant, weren't they, Philippe?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think which is my favourite, and I think the Kvaratskhelia goal remains my favourite. And yeah. I have a question, actually, because, you know, we've got terms in French to describe various pieces of skill that you don't necessarily have in English. Perhaps because you don't see them as often in England, or you didn't used to. And
no. Fullbacks weren't rolling the ball over their with their studs, in the 80s, knocking it long, were they?
Okay, so there is a word for that in French. It's called un râteau, a rake. This is what we call it.
Râteau.
Le râteau,
yeah.
Which is a piece of skill that you see very rarely these days. And usually it's performed in slow-mo, like somebody is showboating a bit, or is trying to show that, yeah, he can do that too. And this one, that's different. This is the use of a very, very difficult particular piece of skill at speed to actually put the ball in a good position for an absolutely amazing finish. And I have to say, Kvaratskhelia, there's so many things I like about him. The fact that he looks the wrong shape. He doesn't look like a footballer. It looks like his body, there's more mass in the bottom half of it, and then in his neck or head. So he looks a bit, he's been made in a lab where they were not quite on the job. And at the same time, he is so imaginative, he's so generous. I love his face as well. I love the way, I love everything about Kvaratskhelia. That's not from yesterday, that for a very long time. But that particular goal, I thought that was just the essence of him in a matter of a few seconds. It was just gorgeous. But, we could, wax lyrical about Désiré Doué, his shot when he's totally off balance. And also the fact that Nuno Mendes is a pretty decent left back who can also score pretty decent goals. I mean, yeah, it's been a ridiculous. We were just talking about it, before we started recording this pod, that this has been most ridiculous couple of days in terms of the quality of the goals. And the 3 scored, I should say the four scored, because Aston Villa's goal was a thing of beauty as well in a different style. I've been absolutely, it's very hard to remember having so many beautiful goals scored in such a little space of time.
Yeah, Will says Kvaratskhelia majestic stud roll, sending the fire engine to the wrong fire, is up there with Messi's turn against Jerome Boateng all those years ago. Timber, he says, and Adrian says, if Barry does a couple more runs this week, could he play fullback against PSG next week, please? And I suppose that's the point with that goal, Barry, is that, Disasi's come on because Matty Cash has had a nightmare and is on a yellow card and can't stop fouling people. And it's like the first 10 seconds, probably like your first jog you went. Well, like, you're not ready. He just wasn't ready to be like spun inside out so many times, but it just wasn't fair.
Yeah, at least on my first jog, I was on my own. So I didn't have to worry about being turned inside out. Matty Cash, I think he'd racked up 4 fouls in about 15 minutes, the opening 15 minutes. So he was on a yellow. It was the pragmatic decision to take him off at half-time. Axel Disasi probably wasn't relishing having to come on. And he was made to look a bit foolish, wasn't he? That correspondent put it well, sending the fire engine to the wrong fire. Kvaratskhelia made him look pretty stupid. Him and Désiré Doué were just outstanding for PSG last night. We've spoken at length this season about how PSG are no longer this clown show, but these guys are given a bit of a license that the rest of the team doesn't really have. You know, they play to a very strict, rigid process, but they're given license to more or less do what they want, and boy, can they turn it on.
I was just thinking, Archie, about, Disasi, being sent to the wrong fire. And maybe it's like a testament to the balance of defenders, that it's actually rare that you see someone you see a professional footballer look so unstable. It's like we hark back to Boateng. That's a long time ago, right? Most of the time they're quite good, even if they do get turned of just like looking like they're good at this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, because particularly how fast and nimble attacking players are these days, you have to be prepared to be sent in 17 different directions with the amount of stepovers you'd expect a high-quality winger to be doing, and to be able to read which one is the actual move. I mean, they always say, I think, look at the ball, not at the feet. The thing is, you just watching it and how quickly the game moves when PSG or indeed Barcelona are playing it, you wonder, how are you meant to read that? And when your left back in Nuno Mendes is showing the composure to dummy before finishing, and you think, okay, that's something. Because and that's actually a bigger point I'd make as well, is that the way you score your goals can send a message to the opposition about what kind of night it's going to be. And for as well as Villa did to get in front, when they concede the 2 goals from Doué and it feels like we're all having a go at Kvaratskhelia this morning. And Kvaratskhelia, Villa must have felt, well, we've not actually done that bad a defensive job here, and yet we're still 2-1 down because of just world-class strikes. And I think that in these games, like, how powerless that must make you feel mentally in terms of the chasing of it. And even actually, there was a cutaway to Unai Emery's face after Villa scored, and it wasn't exactly euphoric. And I know that as a coach in these situations, you're having to think about, okay, what am I doing next? But honestly, it looked like he was still at PSG, the way that he was kind of thinking, okay, now what? Because it was almost as if he knew about the onslaught that was coming. And yeah, I mean, each of those goals, my personal favourite was the Doué one, just because there was no big drawback of the leg, and the way that he takes the shot means he has to fall over. And I think Martinez can't even telegraph it because there's no sign of it coming. And yeah, I mean, they're all outrageous.
Yeah. I did wonder with Doué, because the first time I saw it, Philippe, I thought, he's Declan Riced that. And then I was like, actually, that's not really in the corner. But I guess, as Archie says, it comes so quickly. There's so much whip on it that Martinez, like, he knows his angles, right? That is, as a goalkeeper, he's just decided, as I believe keepers should do, if you can't get it, there's no point diving. It could hit the bar and come back out.
No, and it's one of those goals where you can look at it as many times as you wish, and there's absolutely nothing nobody could have done about it, because the defender doesn't do the wrong thing, the goalkeeper doesn't do the wrong thing, because the goalkeeper cannot do anything. And it's one of those you just got to say, yeah, okay, fine. He's a very special player. This is why Barcola is not playing. By the way, Max, I mean, I might be saying something very, very usual, but do you know why the expression "to rush to the wrong fire" comes from?
I don't.
Because it's a great football story.
Oh.
And it's from a match report by Geoffrey Green of the Times back in 1953, the famous game between Hungary and England. And Billy Wright, who was the England captain, I think, at the time, was in front of Idek Guti, who actually did something a bit like Kvaratskhelia did, and with his studs. And he went the wrong way, and Geoffrey Green described that as rushing like a fire engine going to the wrong fire. This is where the expression comes from. So this is, this was That's it.
That's a lovely story.
It's good to learn. It's good. Yeah, it's good to learn as well. You know, it's very rare anyone learns anything from this podcast, I would say. So it's good after the first moment of the 2024-25 season. And it's happened. Look, you mentioned actually, Barry, the organisation behind them. And actually that midfield of Neves, Vitinha and Ruiz is just so good, isn't it?
Yeah, Vitinha's a class player. I think I read Barney wrote a sidebar on this game, and he said at one point during the first half, John McGinn had made 6 passes and Vitinha had made about 570. And they bossed this game. I thought Villa set up quite well. Villa were okay in the first half, and they could have got away with a 2-1 defeat, which I'd say they'd have been happy enough with. Vitinha has been one of the players of the tournament, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I mean, would you echo that, Philippe? I just think that midfield is it's the balance as well, you know, because as you say, like, Vitinha is just passing it all the time. Neves is just, I don't know how many kilometres he ran yesterday, you know, and Fabian Ruiz actually, I just think is like such a stunning player.
Fabian Ruiz, by the way, the pass, which leads to Kvaratskhelia goal. I mean, when you think about the counter, watch again from earlier in the move, and you'll see a pass that he does, unbalanced, which puts the ball exactly in the right channel. It's absolutely, I mean, it was so artistic. I think they are, in a way, the embodiment of this new PSG side, the same way that you could say that Doué is as well, because Doué does things that you would have expected Neymar or Kylian Mbappé doing in the past. But the difference is that Doué also works going backwards and trying to get the ball back. And his decision-making yesterday night was crazy because every time he did the right thing. Every time. And he is actually better than Mbappé was at the same age. I've just said it. He's better.
Yeah, you did.
He's a more complete footballer. I'm not saying he hasn't got quite the speed, the rockets in the legs and so forth, and some of the most outrageous skills that Mbappé might have. But he's a more complete footballer. And to think that this boy still hasn't been selected by France is quite unbelievable, isn't it?
Wow.
He hasn't. He was part of the Olympic team. He got the silver medal, with Thierry Henry, but that's not with the seniors. That's with
so who's got his plate? Who's
Barcola. So it's like it's Barcola against Doué at PSG, and Doué versus Barcola in the French national team. So. And by the way, to be called desired gifted for a footballer is not bad, is it?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but it does still sound mad, despite all of us understanding why. It sounds mad, Archie, that you take Neymar, Mbappe and Messi out of a team and they get better at attacking. I mean, that's ridiculous.
But the key word there is team. And this is what they are now. Because if you look at that midfield that we've just been talking about of Neves, Vitinha and Ruiz, they don't have the star power or drag that other top midfields in Europe would have. Maybe they'll have that should they go and win the Champions League this season, which with each passing performance is becoming a more and more likely prospect until they inevitably face, on current form, Barcelona in the final. But this is a team that are working for each other and does not have the distractions of someone throwing their weight about, needing to be recognised in some way, or any sideshows. The star here is the football that's happening, and last night and their goals was also one for they stuck it in the XG pipe and smoked it, I would say. Who needs all of that? And also, I think Declan Rice did that as well, for the way that he was ignoring Nicolas Horver, I think the Arsenal set piece coach, and it must be difficult. I think for Philippe as well. I find it a little bit difficult because it's like we all know the construct behind PSG, and yet this team is so fun. God, you can see why sports washing happens.
Yeah.
Before Christmas, when the group stage was going on, we were tittering at PSG's expense because it looked like they might be the big high-profile casualty in that extended group stage. They lost against Arsenal, they drew with PSV, they lost against Atletico, and they lost with Bayern Munich. So they haven't been this good all season. So to what do you attribute this massive improvement, Philippe, if I can ask?
To be honest, I'm not too sure because no. Honestly,
they've moved Dembele, haven't they? They've moved Dembele.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's the fact that, I mean, to be honest, it's, as we said, it's a new PSG, and perhaps it takes things, some bit of time to settle, and for Luis Enrique to actually put through all the things that he wanted to put through. It takes time, and I think the turning point was the game against Manchester City, probably. When everybody was thinking, this is amazing, whoever loses that game is going to be in real trouble. And they turned up, then how? Then things started to go well. And by the way, it's not as if it was some kind of purple patch for PSG, over the last few weeks. No, it's been like this for a while. And the proof of it is that they're French champions already. That's it. They've won. And it means that they can basically go to the beach in Ligue 1 and concentrate fully on the Champions League from now on, which is not exactly a great prospect for whoever is going to come next. I don't think there's much which has changed apart from the fact that the players are executing better what Luis Enrique wants to do. And also the fact that, don't forget, they've bought a little player called Kvaratskhelia in January. That makes a bit of a difference, doesn't it? So his arrival, plus the fact that the group has gelled and is now buying into completely what he's trying to do. I'm a bit surprised because of all the teams that I'm seeing in Europe, this is the most free playing of them all, by a distance. And would you associate that with Luis Enrique? Not necessarily. It's just that obviously he's seen, Christ, I've got some super gifted players here. Super gifted. Might as well, make them. I see you were not nodding. You were doing the opposite of nodding, and I don't know what the word for the opposite of nodding is.
Archie. Who was?
I think it was Archie when I said there was the most free playing team in Europe at the moment because.
It's because I watched Barcelona last night, mate.
Barcelona look at what they were playing against. Borussia Dortmund were absolutely awful, but we'll come to that later. And we can disagree on this, perhaps.
Philippe, you said PSG can sort of get on the beach as far as Ligue 1 is concerned, but they're on course for an invincible season. I don't know if they've ever done that before, if anyone in France has done it.
They've never done it.
So I presume they'll be going all out to do that. And I also noticed their league match against Nantes at the weekend has been postponed, so they get a weekend off ahead of the second leg of this game. And Nantes are sort of in a relegate. They're not safe.
No.
So how do they feel about that game being pushed back, or do they care, or did they have to give their blessing?
No, it's a decision taken by the league, and it's always been thus. And to be honest, it's a very controversial kind of move, and both national and international level, because it gives French clubs, because not just for PSG, it's happened for other clubs, probably an undue advantage compared to some other leagues. But there you go, it's the league's prerogative. As to Nantes, they're so rubbish that I think that the B team of PSG, which, by the way, is not a bad-looking B team, would dispose of them quite easily. When I say going to the beach, it means that he will be able to rest all the players he wants to rest.
Sure, yeah.
And you say, okay, this. So Barcola might play the next game for PSG instead of Doué. Oh, that's terrible, isn't it? I mean,
I just want to move the subject to Villa because we haven't really talked about them, and fair enough, PSG were brilliant, but I mean that third goal, Archie, kills them, doesn't it? Because to get out there 2-1, given how the game went, and it will be different. Villa Park is different, and Villa Park can be an amazing atmosphere. And you just think if it had been 2-1, I think Villa would probably have been delighted.
I'm not sure about delighted because of what they've seen in the previous 90 minutes, and also knowing what PSG did at Anfield. That. With, you talk about the amazing atmosphere at Villa Park. It didn't seem to exactly disturb PSG too much going to Anfield, being a goal down, and see the freedom that they played with there. The biggest concern is that it took two magnificent actions from John McGinn, seeing things 5 seconds ahead of everyone else, for firstly the goal, but then the chance that Villa get in the second half, for them to really create much. And this Villa team, as we've seen in the Premier League, they have a lot of quality going forward. And for them to be so limited, I don't think any Villa fan is walking out of the Parc des Princes last night being angry at all, because when you are that comprehensively outplayed, when you think about the journey that Villa have gone on in the last few years under Unai Emery, who I think is the perfect coach for them as well, I think there's a point where maybe the right mentality for next week is just try and enjoy it as much as they can. They do have a coach, even at 3-1. If there's a coach who I would want in my corner to try and come up with a plan for overcoming this sort of deficit, it would be Unai Emery. But to find out what that plan is, I don't know. I know he was the plan, the man behind the plan for PSG when they lost, 6-1 in the remontada at Barcelona. but at the same time, I put him in that top echelon of European coaches, and yeah, it's still been a stunning season for them, even if they are knocked out here.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say for Villa, I mean, there were positives, and really important ones. First of all, Marcus Rashford. I mean, we have to mention that because he didn't get much of the ball, but when he had it, he made something happen. Mm-hmm. The exquisiteness of their first goal, which was a beautiful team goal, and the fact that you never had the impression that they gave up. They stayed where they were. They're not as good an assemblage of players as PSG is. Right, okay, fine. But they never gave the impression that they'd given up the ghost or they were not trying. And even in the second half, there were moments I thought it wouldn't take much, a little bit more precision, perhaps a little bit more tranchant or whatever you would call it, for them perhaps to make it 2-2. And even though there were no real chances, there were some half chances of half dangerous occasions. So they were not ridiculous at all. They were actually as good as I think they could be in that particular context. And at 2-1, I thought this could be interesting. Now it's over. Let's not okay. It's gone. It's a goodbye.
If this is over, what's Barcelona Dortmund, mate?
Well, we'll get to that in just a second. It is worth pointing out, not quite enough cutaways of Prince William for my liking during this game. But look, he did give it some when they scored. Fair enough. That'll do for part one. Part two, we will do Barcelona 4, Dortmund 0. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So as we have mentioned, a bit of a humbling night for last year's finalists, Borussia Dortmund. Elite David Nugetting from Raphinha. Lewandowski scored 2. Raphinha was great and has been great. I loved Yamal's toe poke. What did you make of it, Archie?
It was Raphinha's time in England that gave him that kind of finish, obviously. Like, let's start with that. But in all honesty,
yeah,
Barcelona outclassed Dortmund. It was a joy to watch, and to see a team play with that kind of intensity, I was very struck by it. And it's why when Philippe was talking about PSG being the most free-playing team, I have to disagree with it, only because of just what my eyes have seen last night, and just the way that Barcelona play with this confidence and the way they shift the ball about. It is different from PSG, but still, I struggle to pick out a Barcelona player who I would say, there's the weakness, because they were all on such form. The most obvious place you start with is Lamine Yamal. And the contest against Rami Bensebaini and how I've seen him kind of being chased about by Bensebaini and struggling to even... Bensebaini was trying to foul him, but couldn't. That's the issue. Look, it ends up 4-0. Dortmund had a few chances, but every time Dortmund had a chance, Barcelona had more. And I love how adventurous they are with their high line, and how they can seemingly catch you offside in the most unlikely of places, as Seyrou Guirassy found out. From a German perspective, it's nice to see Hansi Flick smile. I'd been told that he was a lovely guy behind the scenes, but we never really saw that at Bayern. He always looked quite grumpy and stressed, and now he seems that the shackles are off, and he seems to be really enjoying life. And I couldn't believe it as well. He's 60. He's looking exceedingly well for 60.
Wow. God. He
So,
really
yeah.
is, yeah. Raphinha has 12 goals and 7 assists this season in the Champions League. I mean, I loved his cushioned header. That is so hard to control that. Matthew says, as a Leeds fan, not a day goes by this season that I'm not more astonished that Jesse Marsch had Raphinha on long throws. Must be said that he is still loved by Leeds fans for single-handedly saving us from relegation in 2022. Seeing him come alive at Barca is incredible. I don't want to give you an open goal question, Barry, but I just don't know what the question is after that. But I guess it's similar for all of us who watched him at Leeds and thought, he's not bad. And then when he went to Barcelona, I don't know about you, we were all like, really? Like, I know he's good, but that is a big step. And for him to be delivering like this is sensational.
Yeah, I think I remember checking when he signed for Barcelona. That is the Leeds Raphinha, is it?
Yeah.
Because it seemed like a weird move from a Barcelona point of view. And it hasn't always worked out for him. They wanted to get rid of him at one point and couldn't. And he, instead of spitting the dummy, he put his head down. He's worked incredibly hard. And he's more than holding his own in that front line of him, Lewandowski and Lamine Yamal. We've spoken, he probably won't win the Ballon d'Or, but he should certainly be in the conversation. People are wondering now, will Lamine Yamal win the Ballon d'Or? Will he be overlooked because he's too young and they'd rather give it to an older player because at some point...
To John Burridge.
Yeah. Lamine Yamal will win it again, at some point in the future. But I think there's a case to be made for both of them. Incredible stories, because Lamine Yamal is still only 17 and just looks the finished article already. And Raphinha came from Leeds. Barcelona tried to sell him on. So who was it they wanted to bring in instead of him? I can't remember.
Nico Williams, maybe?
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. They wanted to bring in Nico Williams. That didn't work out for them. So Raphinha stayed and he's been just outstanding. And he is on course to beat Leo Messi's record contribution for Barcelona this season, albeit he'll have had a couple more games to do so, won't he?
The other thing for Raphinha is he's not a very young player at all. He's a bit of a Dembele case. It's like you wonder where this player's been hiding. He's 28, and you have to remember, before he went to Leeds, he was at Rennes, where he was excellent, by the way, at Rennes. He was at Vitória Guimarães in Portugal. So he's actually coming quite late in his career. That's quite extraordinary. And suddenly he becomes this player. By the way, I have a question. Can you remember a game in which 2 goals were scored by players as close to the goal line as Barcelona Dortmund? Because Raphinha is one, but the Lewandowski header as well.
Yeah,
he almost nudged it, almost, but not quite.
Yeah, he had to touch it, didn't he?
Yeah,
but and also it's got quite hard not to head it. Oh, it was almost above the goal, so he just had to sort of stand there. He couldn't actually, the whole idea, when they say there's no pace on the cross and you've got to generate power with his neck. Lewandowski actually had to just sort of almost withdraw power, like just let it hit him. That's all he could do. That's the only way the ball was going in. Well, do you have an answer to this question, Philippe? Is there a game that you can remember? Oh, I see.
No, I can't. I can't actually remember a game in which this happens twice, that the ball is literally inches from the finishing line. One thing I would say, I would put maybe not a dampener on the judgment of this terrific Barcelona team, but Dortmund had actually a number of chances, and big chances, and had Guirassy been in a normal kind of mood, he had one of the worst games. He perhaps had the worst game of his career. I can't believe the misses that he had. The first one, the air shot, was ridiculous. That was absolutely awful.
I can't believe it. I've got to disagree with Philippe for a second time, because
he's had worse games.
I saw him play at Cologne. And there was an open goal miss against Hanover, which I still to this day, it was Carnu West Brom against Middlesbrough bad, okay? So,
Wow.
Yeah, but I fully agree with you. Guirassy's form, which has been pretty good throughout this season, He scored at the weekend against Freiburg coming off the bench, but he'd been 6 games without a goal since then. And I think it's more reflective of how he's been infected with the Dortmund virus of, and now we turn up for certain games. And this result, this kind of performance had been coming for ages in Europe because Dortmund have refused to put in the yards in the Bundesliga for so long, and they are fighting for their lives to get into the Champions League again next season. And there was one quote from Niko Kovac after the game last night where he was saying that there were times he thought where players were maybe sparing themselves running some yards because they thought they could run those yards going forward. That cannot be your mentality. And it is symbolic of a team and a club which is facing a huge amount of problems right now. Even if they were without the injured Nico Schlotterbeck, who's very important for them, centre-back, out for the next 6 months with a meniscus tear in his knee, there needs to be widespread changes at the club, probably in the hierarchy as well as on the pitch. I'm not sure whether they have the right coach for them either. Yeah, and that all bore out on the pitch for the first time. There are still Dortmund fans who are scratching their heads wondering how they reached the Champions League final last year. And I get it.
Papered over the cracks, didn't it? Philippe, come on then. How were you when Declan Rice put the first one away and then the second one?
Oh my goodness. I was on a cloud, and the cloud is still drifting, pushed by a gentle breeze over the Emirates Stadium. And disbelieving. I think I laughed a lot during that game, I have to say. And I've watched those 2 free kicks and Mikel Merino's exquisite third goal, which is a thing of beauty as well. I watched them many a time, just to ask myself, of course, which one I preferred. And I think the second one. In the end, I think the second one, because of the way that the net has to shape shift almost because of the ball, and it's both incredibly violent, but it's caressing the netting in such a way that the first one is more of a kind of a amazing swing, first session at Lord's on a green pitch. That, which is pretty amazing. The second one, there is something about it that you see very rarely. And first of all, it is a proper top corner. We very often use the expression top corner, but this one is the top corner of the top corner of the top corner. It's a bit like the Vashkiri label, when you look at it, the laughing cow has got a laughing cow in it, which has got a laughing cow. So it's almost like we're entering another dimension of top cornerism, and it's perfection. And this reaction as well is just gorgeous. I mean, I don't know what to say. I'm still on cloud nine.
No, that was good.
Yeah, I'm not entirely reassured by the prospect of having to go to their place, and I know that I think I'm on the pod the day after that. So
yeah, you and Nikki.
Me and Nikki. Okay, so we'll have to see how the jinx is. The jinx has been it's been broken. We'll have to see how when we get together, what effect it has. I don't know, because 2 negatives would be a plus.
Yeah, but 1 plus 1 minus. Who knows? Look, you're in a good position. You'd have taken it. You'd have bitten your arm off to have that for the second leg. But as you say, you just don't know. Europa League tonight then. So Manchester United go to Lyon. Spurs host Frankfurt. Rangers play Athletic Bilbao, and Bodo Glimt play Lazio. And it's all or nothing, Barry, isn't it? For both Manchester United and for Spurs and for Ange, isn't it? How do you see them?
I don't know is the answer because I don't really know how good Eintracht Frankfurt or Lyon are. I know how bad Spurs and Manchester United can be, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, actually, let me stop you there. We have 2 people who might be able to answer those questions. I should probably have asked them. Let's start with you, Archie. What will Spurs get from Eintracht Frankfurt? They're 3rd in the Bundesliga at the moment.
They are, but 3rd would imply that they're close to Bayern Munich and Bayer Leverkusen. And whilst they have been in individual games this season, they were closest to them when Omar Mamouche was at the club. Hugo Ekitike is still having a very good season up front. Mario Götze has been revived in really sensational fashion, and it's nice to see given the way that his career had dipped. I think all careers dip to a certain extent when you score the winning goal in a World Cup final, but I think given the hype that he'd had to face in his career, there's younger players like Hugo Larsson in the centre of midfield, who is very much worth watching out for as well. Frankfurt can be a very dangerous team. They are also a young team, though. And they've got a very eccentric Brazilian goalkeeper called Caio Santos, who can do the sublime and the ridiculous. So it should be fun.
Right. Ahead of the Lyon-Man United game, in a surprise endorsement for Massimo Taibi, Nemanja Matic, who is now at Lyon, called Andre Onana one of the worst goalkeepers in the club's history. He may not have been sparing Massimo Taibi when he said one of the worst. Onana said, "I would never be disrespectful to another club. We know that tomorrow will be a difficult game against a strong opponent. We focus on preparing a performance to make our fans proud. At least I've lifted trophies with the greatest club in the world. Some can't say the same." It's an odd thing to do, to come out before the game, and shit talk someone else. I don't know, Philippe. I don't know Nemanja Matic personally, but what should we expect from Lyon?
I don't know what to say to that, because it changes from one weekend to the next. They've had a very strange season. As you know, Lyon has had numerous off-field problems. They're at the moment threatened by automatic relegation because they've basically torn every regulation of financial fair play and all these very strange arrangements. I know the lawyers are listening, so I'm not going to go into that. He's got what he wanted. Almada and Nuama, two players who are concerned about that, are in the team. Alexandre Lacazette is still there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely, and scoring goals. Of course, the danger man is Ryan Cherky. He didn't play in the last game against Lille. But I mean, it's a bit of an unpredictable kind of team, and they haven't got a coach at the moment. And sometimes it can work to their advantage. They have got a caretaker coach at the moment, and they've had for a couple of months already. I would say that on their day they're a dangerous team, but they're a little bit unpredictable. They can be free-flowing at time, but they can be also not that solid. I mean, so it's very much, they're doing better than Manchester United is doing, obviously, in the French league, because if you look at them, you see they're fifth, and they're actually not that very far from third place, only 2 points behind Monaco. So the results have been better over the last few months. But again, I don't know really what to expect from them. They do have quality. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And as to Nemanja Matic, I would tell you one thing. For having interviewed him once after a game, I would never cross that man. He's very, very tall and very, very strong. And I wouldn't question what he has to tell me, honestly.
Andre Onana is also quite tall, though.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could have a duel.
Yeah. Here's Harry Hill. There's only one thing for it. All right. Well, look, it sounds like worth watching those games then tonight. If you're listening to this pod before they happen, come on, Spurs. Come on, Ange. Just imagine they win the Europa League, then the Champions League next year.
I think he's doing full Adebayor to the fans. If they win the Europa League, he's knee sliding in front of them, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Anyway, that'll do for part 2. Part 3, we'll do a bit of we'll do Muller Corner, of course, a bit of Championship, Premier League review as well. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Let's do a bit of Bundesliga stuff. Thomas Muller leaving Bayern at the end of the season, I presume, is the big news in Germany. Made his debut in 2008. Been at Bayern for 17 years, played 743 times and scored 247 goals. So many trophies. I mean, was it a surprise? What's the reaction been?
Outrage. Because...
Really?
Yeah. Why couldn't they give him another year is the feeling from Bayern fans. And the club have justified it, saying that this is not a financial decision, this is a sporting decision, which makes it less understandable, but makes you think they are trying to put all their resources into making a push for signing Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen this summer. It's been handled poorly. Muller has come out and said that he wanted to have another year at the club, and now to why there's such feelings of emotions. He is the identification figure of modern Bayern. He is how Bavarians would like to see themselves because of the way that he plays. This gangly figure who looks like he got passed up on for being a Thunderbird, who has this unbelievable timing in the box. And when he mishits it, it goes in, he mullers it. And then you come to the person, the way that he talks, his down-to-earthness, his charm, and yet, after defeats, he's the one who shows up in the mixed zone with his no-nonsense and on the nail, if that's an expression, on the nail takes on what's happened. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him on quite a few occasions, and just his charisma is magnetic, and how he comes up with these things in a second language as well, and talking about, Stuttgart is not Stoke, but it's like we've played in Stoke, doing an impression of the Roadrunner. I asked him once, why have Bayern scored so many goals? And he went, because we are hungry. And then he growled at me, and then he walked off. So,
do you think it's a power struggle between him and Company? Like, do you think Company's gone, I don't want this? Or do you think it's just Company doesn't want to play football that Thomas Muller, like the way Company wants Bayern to play, doesn't work for Thomas Muller?
His legs have gone to an extent, Max. But against the deep-lying defence, as we saw against Inter, his understanding of space is so impressive. And I think this is more about the club than it is about Company, whilst Company probably doesn't think he can give him all that much game time, and there is a pressure of having Thomas Muller in the squad, because at every press conference, if he's not playing, then there will be a question that goes up and goes, why is Thomas Muller not playing? As you would expect about the record appearance maker of the club. And I think Thomas Muller as well, the name in itself, it's like one of the most, it's like John Smith in that sense, and he is the everyman. And just one more little anecdote, if I may.
Please.
There was a moment in the tunnel at Leverkusen Bayern a few weeks ago. There were a few ambulance workers who were looking for a selfie with Thomas Muller, and he obliged. But there was a matchday official who said, sorry, this can't be happening here. And Thomas Muller was like, whoa. We're all human beings here. That there is not a problem here. Everyone can have their photos. Like, yes, but it's honestly not a problem. And like that, seeing that soothed my soul a bit. That's the person that I have seen that Thomas Muller is, and for him to have that kind of humility about him, despite being the person that he is, respect.
It's just, I was wondering, that was for Archie, is because Bayern usually, the great players of its past, like the Rummenigges and the Hoeneßes, they become members of the staff and the hierarchy at Bayern. And is this going to happen for Thomas Müller at some point in the future, or does it mean that precisely the Hoeneßes of this time have to go first before he can be called back in?
Yes, Max Abel made a joke about it as well, saying that given the way things will go at Bayern, Thomas Müller will probably come in and fire me in my job as sporting director. He will be at the club in some form.
All right. Pudsey says, is there anything better than a hometown lad scoring 94th minute winner with a worldie of a scissor bastard? Yes, Jamie Patterson, Coventry City player, scored this brilliant goal to beat Portsmouth. I mean, the stadium went the fans just went totally wild. Lampard dancing away. And the song for Jamie Patterson is He Calls It a Batch. He calls it a batch. Jamie Patterson, he calls it a batch. Because apparently if you're from Coventry, you call a bread roll a batch. And so they are very excited that he goes with that.
You sound like an anthropologist.
Like a cob in Nottingham Forest, big cob shop.
A blah in Waterford.
Is that right? Okay. A roll, if Central Cambridge. Or a focaccia. Forgive me. Now, let's talk about Liverpool contracts quickly. Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, close to renewing their deals. Does that surprise you, Barry, that they're both sticking about?
Salah does, I think. I thought he would leave, and he still might. Virgil, not a huge surprise. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I asked you a question. You answered the question. Those deals haven't been done, but they're both saying, it's getting closer. And yeah,
The one thing I would say is Virgil hasn't exactly been covering himself in glory recently. He's looked a bit old.
he's done a few. There was one really random one. I can't remember who was it against when he sort of jumped. It was against Beto, wasn't it?
There was Everton. Beto got the better of him twice.
And then Muniz did for Fulham, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get to that, Archie, in a second. In your race for 5th place, all the sides from 3rd to 9th probably should win. Forest, Everton, Chelsea, Ipswich, Newcastle, Man United, Man City, Palace, Villa go to Southampton, Fulham go to Bournemouth. Okay, that's not simple, but they're not on a good run. And Brighton host Leicester. So it should very much be as you were. Archie, a Fulham minute. You wanted to talk about our coverage of the win over Liverpool. Is this going to be a compliment, or are you about to go into the comments? But be on the pod by saying, I can't believe you didn't talk about my club or whatever.
It was great. I loved it. For me, it was like Fulham getting the Rolls-Royce treatment. First on Football Weekly means you get proper detail on everything that's happened. And you're like, oh yeah. And they're they're talking about Calvin Bassey. Bloody hell. Look at this. This is fantastic. I enjoyed it. Still a bit annoyed that my mum selfishly decided not to spend her birthday at Fulham Crystal Palace, and that's why we lost in the FA Cup quarter-final. I mean, along with Marco Silva's...
Of course, that was a blow, wasn't it?
Along with Marco Silva's refusal to change his approach from the league game against Palace, so everyone else won't have watched the league game, but the FA Cup game was just a replay of what happened there. But yeah, look, the Liverpool game was a lot of fun. Ryan Sessegnon coming back into form. It looks like he's been on the weights, and his revival makes your heart sing. Rodrigo Muniz completely doing what he did to Virgil van Dijk. Yeah, all of the above. Still don't think we'll quite make it. 12th of Barry's prediction. There's still a part of me that thinks it might happen because I'm an eternal pessimist. But it's good fun.
Jim says, which member of the panel wants to lead the tributes to Premier League stalwart, World Cup final official, and most memorably pointless champion Darren Cann ahead of his final top flight match this weekend? Yeah, the 56-year-old will be on the touchline at the Etihad for Man City versus Palace. It will be strange. Feels like he feels like he's the linesman for every game. He's one of them, and then it's like somebody with an enormous neck doing the other one. But it's little Darren Cann is always there doing every match. So well done on a great career.
I have to say, I didn't know he was a pointless champion, and I could not pick him out of a lineup.
Oh, really? He's the one lino that doesn't look like all the other linos.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think you would recognise him. Club World Cup ticket prices. Philippe, over to you.
Well, it's actually almost quite funny what is going on at the moment with those tickets. As you know, it's a difficult competition to sell to the point that the BBC and ITV have decided that they didn't want to show it at all. And the crazy thing is that they're desperately trying to flog the tickets. So Gianni Infantino constantly reminds people that they should be coming. He did it again. He was at an event which was the Live Golf Miami tournament, which took place at the Trump National Doral Course, which is like a full card on Gianni's bingo, isn't it? Bingo card, this one. And the extraordinary thing is that there are tickets.
Today I am 10 under par. That's what he said.
The thing is that they have got all these kind of packages, which means that you can get tickets for the Club World Cup, for the World Cup proper in 2026, if you buy enough tickets for the Club World Cup. A bit like buy two, get one free. Except that it's not buy two, get one free, it's buy 20, get one free.
Got it.
If you want to have the chance to buy a ticket for the final of the World Cup in 2026. And the result of that is that I don't think I've ever seen this happen before, is that some tickets are actually cheaper on the secondary market than they are on the official sale site. Because they're sold, and there was an example which was found by Martin Ziegler of the Times, to give him his due, a ticket that was on sale for a round of 16 game in Miami was $105 or $106 on Ticketmaster, which is the official FIFA partner. And when you went to Viagogo, it was only $88.63.
Right.
So that would suggest that the offer still exceeds the demand by some considerable distance.
Producer Joel had been doing he was on Ticketmaster, so maybe these are the official prices. $83 for Man City versus Wydad, $50 for PSG Botafogo, $60 for Man City versus Al Ain, $55 for Benfica Bayern Munich, $40 for Auckland City versus Boca Juniors. Real Madrid games, have all sold very well. 2 are sold out. But yes, it's be an interesting old tournament, won't it, Philippe?
Well, it will be interesting with brackets. Yes, it will be very interesting. First of all, we'll have to see in which state the players will be. Then we'll have to see how many people are in the stands. And basically, we'll have to see if we can actually watch that on any other thing than the zone in this country.
Max, the big question is, have yours and Barry's contracts been extended through to the summer to cover the Club World Cup? You know, like, forget about the players, the extended workload on you guys.
I'm deep in discussions, but it's looking positive, Archie. I would say. I don't know about Barry. But
I have nothing better to do.
Well, if you think we're in the red zone now,
I haven't got a lot on.
Well, you got to start jogging, Barry. So Claire says, hi all, Jack Grealish and his Alice Band and his band of Alice Band wearing devotees have been mentioned on 2 podcasts in a row, and I couldn't help but think of Hong Yun Sang, a beloved youngster who plays for my nowadays local team, Pohang Steelers, who play in K-League 1, the top division in South Korea. Hong has often cited Grealish as an inspiration and sported an Alice Band for a while. He's often been referred to as Hong Grealish in the Korean press. Not sure whether this was a nickname of his making or not. He's probably heading off to do his military service soon, which is sad both for our team and for his coiffure. An Alice Band and a buzz cut seem an unlikely mix. Thanks for the pod. Gives me a glimmer of hope during my morning commute as I wait expectantly for a few crumbs of Everton coverage. Cheers, Claire. That's okay, Claire. Thanks for listening out there in South Korea. And that will do for today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Barry.
Thanks.
Thanks, Philippe.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Archie.
Thank you.
Football Weekly is produced by Joel Grove. Our executive producer is Danielle Stephen.
This is The Guardian.